I swear, if it's not one thing, it's another. I'm more annoyed about this than I am about having to do all this with one arm. All right. Do we have sound? If anybody is here yet, do we have sound? I need to know if we have any sound. Oh, yay, finally sound. Yeah. God damn it, this is becoming a weekly occurrence, and yes, I'm pissed about it. All right. I'm not mad at anybody here, of course. I'm mad at my stupid system. Seems to lock up every single time I do one of these YouTube lives. Usually it waits about an hour or so before locking up, but no, not this time. All right. Well, all we can do is continue. Okay. So, yeah, I know. I've got everything set up correctly as far as I know. And I have a direct Ethernet connection to my router, too. I'm not using Wi-Fi. So I'm using a Windows 10 system with 8 gigs of RAM. That should be enough. But I'm seriously considering, if I hadn't broken my arm, and which means I can't go out driving. Otherwise, I would have upgraded my RAM by now. Oh, well. Anyway, all we can do is just get back to it. So, now that we've gotten this far, nonetheless, at least, if nothing else, we've got ourselves some cake batter. And to this, we only have one more ingredient to add in. This is at the request of my roomie. Let's see if we can get this in. Oh, man, this thing's heavy. Okay, this is going to be a little trickier because this is a heavy mortar and pestle. I know. Lower this. There, that might help. Yeah. Oh, come on. Okay. Let's try it this way. Well, okay. If at first you don't succeed, think of something else. Namely, that. So, let's put this back in again. And do it this way. These are crushed leftover candy canes. That should be enough. Okay, and that is enough of that. So as I am once again sincerely apologizing for what seems to be a weekly occurrence, which I still want to take care of once and for all as soon as I can. Now, let's move in a little bit. Down. There we go. And our next step is to grease the pan, which, of course, I forgot one other thing. And that, of course, is the grease. So, I always forget something. That's okay.
But the oven is preheated.
What? Yes, the oven is preheated. I did remember that. I know, thank goodness. It would be just my luck, wouldn't it? All right. Finally, and I'm hoping this is the last of the delays here. And meanwhile, hello again to Peg Tooth and Pawpaw Dan. Yeah, actually, let me say hi again to all the people here who make this worthwhile. Red Dog goes to show you people should have been born with 4 arms and a kangaroo pouch. Yeah, I know. It's too bad Dr. Octopus was a bad guy. I could really use a few arms like his. Processed Bird, Minty Candy Cane. Yes, your Mixer needs to be taken apart and cleaned and put new grease in it. You're probably right. I inherited that from my dad. He claimed, and Mom even claimed, that he bought it brand new, but I guess he must not have taken very good care of it, unfortunately. So it goes. All right, well, at least this is the easy part, and that is simply greasing the pan. It's so easy, I can almost do it with one hand, which is exactly what we need to do. And once we do so, might even sprinkle a little bit of cocoa powder in as well. At least as best as I can here. Anyway, the rest of this is not hard at all, fortunately. And for the record, I like using margarine spread to grease my pans. I've really become attached to that. In fact, I find, it's got a nice buttery flavor, and it works well because margarine is mostly vegetable oil. And before the comments start, you're using margarine, it's plastic, it's poison. No, it isn't. And the reason why I can say that is because I did my research. I will not go and do a lecture on this, but I will say is this. After the big margarine heart disease trans fat scare, a real one, of the 1990s, the companies actually took notice about that, and they changed the makeup of these spreads. If you'll notice, if you look at these spreads here, like Country Crock, for instance, you'll notice nowhere on it does it say margarine, because it does not have the polyunsaturated fats that margarine has. It does not have the oleoresin that margarine has. Rather, it is a different kind of processed vegetable oil, mostly vegetable oil. And so because of this, it actually does not have those trans fats that everybody worried about with margarine. So quite frankly, modern day butter spreads are a lot safer than the margarine that got everybody worried. Now, neither butter or margarine or spread are really that healthy, and people can argue about that. But the point being is that, no, this stuff here is not plastic. It was not made to fatten turkeys, and it will not give you heart disease. Well, any more than butter will. And that's all I will say about that, I promise. At least tonight. All I got to do now is just rinse my hands off a little bit. Oh, yes. Believe me, it's like, don't realize how good you have it when you have two hands until you don't. That's all right. I'm not going to be trying to struggle through this every week. I promise you that, and I promise my roommate that too. It's only that it is because it is Valentine's Day, and I did want to do some, I did want to do some baking for that. So that's why at least we're making the effort of this. But as I said, I'm not going to try struggling through this every week. I'm not going to do things like chop up steak or anything like that with one hand. This is actually not too difficult. I'm still struggling because I'm an amateur, as I've said many times, but even so, even with one hand, I'm still getting it done. So we will just move back a little bit. Don't want to drag that mic down. That, again, would be just my luck. Readjust this camera here. There we are. And thank you once again for your patience with all of this. So now, fortunately, we get to the easy part. Lower this. The easy part. Come on, if it's so easy, why is it so hard? Because I forgot to take the mixer blade off. It's always something. There we go. And the mixer blade off. Now comes the easy part. And I just realized I did it at the wrong angle because I don't want to be in front of the camera. There we go, at last. And away we go. And voila. Now, despite my amateurish attempts at mixing this, and despite the the mishap we had of the sound, and despite my only doing this, and by the way, I'm being very careful as far as my arm is concerned, despite everything, lo and behold, we actually have cake in a heart-shaped pan. Enameled cast iron pan, no less. So I'd say we are doing pretty good. One thing I can't do is scrape the pan, unfortunately. So that means somebody's going to have to lick the bowl. But nonetheless, there we are. Oh, that sure was fun, wasn't it? Now, finally, over to the oven. And in we go. Carefully. And in we go. And then after this, I'll just be standing there talking, folks. I won't be making any more of a fool of myself. I think this is enough. Okay. The timer is going to be set for 50 minutes. 5, oh, good. There we go. Got it. Haha, we got it. And we're done. Yeah, I can only imagine what some of those gossip sites will say. Hey, watch this guy try to make a cake with one arm. Well, looks like I did it. And it could be worse, too. So, let's just readjust this one last time. And then let's get down to having some fun with all you folks, because you folks are my friends, and I do not mean that facetiously. Just go over a little bit. There we go. I think you'd like that view. Hello again. Okay. All right. So 50 minutes. It is 8:35. That means 8:35, 9:35, 9:25. The cake will come out of the oven. No, I don't expect to stay around that long. About to get lucky tonight? Well, I seriously doubt that. I've had some interesting luck this week. Eliza Solorzano, have you ever used Smart Balance? It is labeled as a buttery spread. It's low cholesterol, but delish. Well, I kind of boycott Smart Balance for the simple reason that they have that stupid non-GMO label on the front, and I deliberately avoid using buying any of as much of those kind of things as possible, because non-GMO is an imaginary ripoff, and that's a subject for another video. In fact, I did a video about that. If you look for the term GMO on my channel, you will find the video, 2 of them at least, and we'll go from there. Now is not the time to argue about subjects like that, but nonetheless. But yeah, I do like using things like that country crock, for instance. I think I grew up on shed spread, in fact. I mean, I know we were using it. Mom was buying that even way back in, I can think of in the 80s, maybe even the 70s. So, but yeah, I will try not to get into any more political subjects like that tonight, because, yeah, I don't think anybody is in the mood to argue tonight between the weather we're having and, again, this is supposed to be for Valentine's Day, when everybody is supposed to be doing things for the folks they love, except for the folks who, of course, say, get to say things like, well, I will be all by myself, all my lonesome. And there are a lot of people like that. Oh, yeah. Okay, I think it's time to change the subject now. How about you? Let me check these comments once again. Oh, and one last thing. No, that last bit was not meant about me. I'm not asking for any kind of pity like that. Trust me, and I'm being completely honest about that. Ow! Ow! That hurt more than anything else. Sorry, I just twisted my wrist. Which, I guess, okay, hope your arm is doing good. I finally broke down and bought me a large 14-inch wok now to use it. You will get a lot of use out of that. And yeah, having said that, okay, I think I better tell this story at least once. All right, what happened? Well, quite simple. As I mentioned, we had a snowstorm on this past Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, when everybody was getting ready for the Super Bowl. I was getting ready to cook myself. So, I mean, yeah, even though Tom Brady was in the Super Bowl, I wasn't really interested in following him. I didn't even find out who won the Super Bowl until I asked on Monday morning. But anyway, because we were having a big storm, I figured it would be safer to just go out and walk to the store to get my food supplies. And so I, put on my shoes, headed out to the store. Did not even make it to the end of the driveway when I slipped on a really nasty patch of ice. Tried the best to keep my balance. Didn't work and fell, and I landed pretty hard on my wrist, and boy, yes, boy, did that hurt. I also landed on my hip, for the record, and yet my hip did not hurt in the slightest. So, I mean, I've had no pain or at all from my hip. So that really, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I could have had a hip fracture, and instead I ended up like this. So, yeah, I had some intense pain and did not waste any time, headed right to the ER. Well, to be precise, I called Uber, and they got me to the ER. So, and they gave me an X-ray and told me that I had what they called a distal fracture, distal, which I'd never heard of before. Had to look it up, which really just means, well, it just means it's a very common wrist fracture. Okay, so here I am in a splint. They said that the ETA for a full recovery is anywhere between like 4 to 6 weeks. I'm hoping no, I have a follow-up appointment on Friday to go and see a bone specialist or osteopathic doctor to really determine if, in fact, they set this thing right, if I need one of those full plaster casts, or if I'm in trouble or not. Assuming everything goes right, my hope is that I can be out of the sling at least in maybe about 3 weeks or so. Which means really here on Cast Iron Wednesday, for me at least, what you just saw a few minutes ago is the last cooking or baking I'll be doing live for about 3 weeks or so. And instead, I will be, we will have plenty of cast iron chats, and there's certainly no shortage of subjects to discuss. I mean, heck, I'm standing next to about 24 subjects as it is, between the skillets and the pans and the cornbread pans and the cauldrons. Yes, indeed. There are plenty of topics we can cover when it comes to cast iron. So, but yeah, so I am not asking for pity. This happens to a lot of people, as you know. It could be a lot worse. So I'm very much open to snarky comments about it, largely because I deserve them. I mean, after all, I was the guy dumb enough to try making a cake tonight with my arm in a sling. So I do have to say, if nothing else, and here I guess is where the pity part comes in that it reminds me actually of a certain other YouTube channel, not about cast iron. I think the guy has used cast iron maybe about once or twice, but I'll bet a lot of you know which channel I'm talking about, and I'm not even going to mention the name, largely because this YouTube cooking channel, the guy on it, unfortunately, has appeared in many lists of what they call the worst YouTube cooking channels. People go out of their way to diss this guy for making awful, awful stuff in his kitchen. And yet his channel did manage to get like something about 200,000 to 300,000 subscribers. So he was making a good living off of it until the day he got a stroke and he completely lost all movement in his right arm. His right arm is dead. And ever since then, when was that? Like about 3 years ago? I don't even know, because quite frankly, I did not watch his channel regularly anyway. I'm not the type of person who really likes going out of my way to make fun of things like that. I mean, after all, he was a guy having fun cooking and making a decent living off of it. So, but I swear, I feel feel so bad now when I watch him on his channel, in that he deliberately, stands in such a manner and places himself in front of the camera so that his arm is hidden behind everything that he's doing. And honestly, I really cannot watch that. I just feel so bad, and nor can I ask anyone really to, as I said, make any insults about him for that. It's just, compared to that, this is really nothing to worry about, because after all, I'm only going to be like this for, like I said, maybe about 3 to 4 weeks at the most. So have at it. Feel free with your comments. It's like, break a leg, or no, yeah, better yet, yeah, you better enjoy this cake. After all, it cost you an arm and a leg. So why not? I'll get better, and I can only appreciate everybody for sticking around. And so ends the sob story. Now let's go this way, if you don't mind, and let's check some comments here. So 2 thumbs up. Yeah. C.S. Papa Dan, was the heart-shaped Dutch oven made in USA or Asia? That was definitely made in Asia. I have to say that, because that's one thing, is that there are absolutely no, now there's one, but no major enamelware manufacturers at all here in the U.S., and have not been for decades. All of the major cast iron manufacturers stopped making enamelware here in the U.S. All enameled cast iron that you see, including Lodge, is either made in Asia or made in Europe. Lodge makes all of their bare cast iron right here in the USA, in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Their enameled ware is made in Asia, in China, actually. They do actually have their own factory, or they contract or something out in China. And so that's actually made in China, and so is the enamelware. However, Lodge enamel cast iron ware is perfectly safe to cook with. There's absolutely nothing to worry about that. I mean, I've gone into that subject quite a few times before, and I'll keep going into it as many times as I have to. Number one, that Asian-made cast iron is safe. I mean, it does not contain lead or hazardous chemicals or anything like that. There are people who avoid Asian-made cast iron or don't like it because of personal or political reasons. And you folks, you have every right to do so. I have no intention of dictating my opinions or politics to you. And likewise for yourself. You can do what you want. But whether or not you like Asian-made cast iron, including Lodge enamelware cast iron, it's still safe to cook with. And as far as I know, that's the case with any enameled cast iron that you see for sale, whether it's at Bed Bugs and Beyond, or TJ Maxx, or Walmart. The Tramontina enameled pan, enameled Dutch oven is actually very popular, and it's a very good piece, quality Dutch oven to own too. I mean, really, if you want to spend the money and get a Tramontina huge, like 6 or 7 quart enameled Dutch oven, you will get a lot of great use out of it. The disadvantage of just about all of these, maybe even Lodge, but the disadvantage of just about all of these is that they really only last a few years of good use. If you heavily use an enamel cast iron pan, in only a few years, it's going to start cracking and crazing, and worse, even flaking off. Then we get into those really expensive and very high quality enamelware, like Le Creuset or Staub, which are much more expensive, but are certainly to last much longer. So I hope that answers that. How did you fall? Well, I told that story about 10 minutes ago. You can rewind this video again. Okay, I don't know why they can't in America. Well, obviously the short answer is, well, business reasons. I guess it just simply was not worth the cost. So I'm not a businessman. I can't make an answer for that. Someone here on YouTube Live pointed out a couple of weeks ago that a small manufacturer of cast iron here in the US, in New York, in fact, Borough Furnace, they have started making their own enameled cast iron as well. So, and to which I say all the best to them. Borough Furnace makes all of their cast iron by hand, including their enamelware, which means, of course, that their cast iron pans are produced at a very slow rate, and they're extremely expensive. We're talking like maybe $300 for a single skillet, for instance. So, but if you want a handmade piece of American craft work that frankly is like a piece of art, well, Borough Furnace is one of those options to go to, and that apparently includes their own ironware. On the other hand, if you just want a nice, decent user, you can still go to TJ Maxx and Marshalls and all that, or even Walmart, and get a nice enameled cast iron pan there, or even Aldi's. Yeah, I mean, Aldi's every so often, as you know, has these, what's their brand? Crofton, I think. Of enameled cast iron. That's also very good quality stuff too. A lot of people I know on the Cast Iron Cooking Group do use the Aldi brand, and one of the something like the first or second cast iron piece I ever owned was from Aldi. After my parents gave me an Aldi enameled cast iron grill pan for Christmas back in 2010, in fact. So yeah. However, I don't have that one anymore because I ended up never using it. Some people enjoy grill pans. I just personally am not one who uses them very often. All right, what else do we have here? Okay, I don't know why. European enameled cast iron used to contain lead, not anymore. Hopefully, yes, that is true. And for that matter, so did American cast iron, enameled cast iron. Yes, I said it. But this was back in around the 19th century, in the 1800s, when they did, in fact, enamelware makers and makers of enamel cast iron did, in fact, use lead in the enamel glaze on their cast iron, and that did include American manufacturers too. Several years ago, I did acquire for about $20 a big enamel cast iron pot from the Marietta foundry of Pennsylvania. I forget if it was Philadelphia, but the Marietta foundry. And those who know their 19th century cast iron probably know the Marietta foundry. And I actually had it tested out. And yes, it did indeed have lead in it. I didn't use a lead paint test. I actually took it to one of those places that does lead paint testing, professional lead paint testing with an X-ray gun, and they did indeed find a considerable percentage of lead in the enamel glaze. Now, I have been doing research as best as I can, trying to find a definite date of the approximate time when enamelware makers stopped using lead in their enamel glazes. The best I can tell is it was around the very early 20th century. So we're talking about 100 years ago or more. I don't have any exact dates, unfortunately. I've not been able to find anything I can hold up in front of the camera and say, look, see, this is when it was safe. I have not been able to find anything like that. What seems to have happened was that enamelware makers, including graniteware, which is, graniteware is still around today. They make those cheap enamelware pots you see everywhere, including those black speckled pots that everybody in the world owns. They started actually producing lead-free enamelware and advertising it as such. They called it poison-free, because it had no lead in it. And that was apparently the start of a trend that did cause American enamelware manufacturers to stop using lead on the glazes of their pans. So I would really recommend, for instance, if you own a Griswold enameled cast iron pan, and there are some of them out there, if you own one by Griswold, I do not know the absolute answer of whether or not it has a lead enamel glaze. My best guess would be no, it does not. I believe that Griswold did indeed not use or took out lead from their enamel glazes, but I do not have a definitive answer for that. I would really want to pose that question to the Griswold experts, like the Griswold and Wagner Society. So, I didn't expect to be talking this much about enamel cast iron, but I guess that makes sense because, after all, that's what they're making that cake in. And hey, I don't have any problem with that because, yeah, I mean, enamel cast iron is a really good subject in itself. I mean, as I mentioned, if you're not careful, if you don't use it carefully, you can, it takes. It may end up cracking or crazing within just a few years or so. So that's something to consider. On the other hand, I have no problem owning a pan like that one in the oven here. After all, it only cost me about $20. Nothing wrong with plain old cast iron. Oh, yeah. Pawpaw Dan, suggestion for upcoming topics: unidentified cast iron, Southern mystery skillers, or Lodge's enameled original black log. Yeah, that would be interesting, I think. What do you think of bunt cake pans? Oh, bunt cake pans, huh? You mean like this one? This is the new Lodge bunt cake pan that they came out with about 3 years ago. Wow, has it already been 3 years? Yeah, apparently it has been. As the first line in their Legacy series. And yeah, I love it. In fact, that is not my only cast iron bun cake pan. I have another one down here on the shelf, which unfortunately a little hampered in getting that out. But I have a cast iron bun cake pan that I managed to score on eBay several years ago, and I actually got a decent price for it too. And at first, I thought it was a Wagner bunt pan, but after showing it to the cast iron experts on some Facebook groups, their conclusion was it's likely a reproduction that used a Wagner bunt pan as the original pattern for their mold. But hey, it works just fine. It's a great cast iron bunt pan. Yeah, bunt cakes are a lot of fun to use, and I do have several videos where I made bunt cakes. What else do we have? But yeah, for the record, I mean, especially as I mentioned that I'm not going to be doing any more cooking for at least about 2 to 3 weeks. Next week's topic, I'm thinking, I do like a suggestion that I got on my just a couple of days ago, in which I could focus on the history of one or two particular cast iron makers, and I like that plan, which is why I'm thinking that next Wednesday I'm going to be talking especially about Birmingham Stove and Range. Yeah, like there's no shortage of information on that. Well, you can thank the internet, quite frankly, for the explosion of popularity that Birmingham Stove and Range has, and I'm very, very proud to have been at least a small part of that. Really, before the rise of the internet, BSR pans had unfortunately been forgotten, even though they're everywhere. You can find, most of you folks watching this probably have at least one BSR pan somewhere in your collection. They're so common, and yet really they were practically unknown until internet research within only like the last several years or so really unearthed a lot of the history of that company. So yeah, I will be talking a lot more about that next week, I think. And well, let me see. Wow, we're going on about 9 o'clock, so that's not bad so far. Anyway, cooking on a campfire with cast iron pans and Dutch ovens can yield very good concoctions during camping trips. Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's why I guess I should mention. God, I don't want to bump that again. Okay. Yeah, difference between enamelware and plain cast iron, especially in Dutch ovens. And I think I have said this one before. Given a choice, if you're just starting out collecting or using, I should say, cast iron, I would rather you use cast iron even before you collect it. But really, as everyone knows, the very, very first item you should have in your kitchen for cast iron would be a nice cast iron skillet, probably a 10-inch cast iron skillet, which will practically never leave your stovetop. You will always have a use for that. The second thing I would recommend would probably be a 12-inch skillet. The third thing after that I would recommend would be a bare cast iron Dutch oven. Even more than an enameled cast iron Dutch oven, I think a bare cast iron Dutch oven is enormously useful, and you will get a lot of great cooking out of that. Although I do find that as far as kitchen use is concerned, enamel Dutch ovens do seem to outnumber bare Dutch ovens in the kitchen. And that's a shame because, I mean, besides the fact that the bare Dutch oven is slightly cheaper, the enameled, of course, is really pushed, especially by the modern celebrity chefs that have made cast iron so popular over the last several years or so. I mean, whenever you see and most of those chefs and most of those cooking videos on YouTube, in fact, really, whenever they're cooking in the oven and usually on the stovetop too, if they're not using stainless steel, they're using an enameled Dutch oven. Enameled iron Dutch oven. Almost never do we see bare iron Dutch ovens, which is pity because really you could get the best roast chicken, for instance, in a bare cast iron Dutch oven. I've got a video that I'm very proud of, and I'm glad to see that a lot of people are starting to watch that one. The one about the 500-degree Dutch oven chicken. That is that where you can take a 5-pound chicken, put it in, heat up a Dutch oven to 500 degrees, drop the chicken in, and in just 45 minutes you've got yourself a perfect roast chicken. And the nice thing about that is, as you know as well, there is a very popular recipe for using a 500-degree cast iron pan or skillet to make a roast chicken, which also makes a really good roast chicken. But when you use the skillet, it splatters grease all over your oven, makes a really nasty mess in your oven, and then the oven has to be clean. When you use the Dutch oven method, that doesn't happen. It contains all of the grease and the splatter, and you don't have a big mess. What you do have to do, of course, is be very, very careful because it's an extremely hot cast iron pot, and you have to be really careful not to burn anyone, including yourself. I'm moving back and forth here as I'm trying to see any new comments here on this. Talking about Lodge's warranty being good. Oh, yes. And they stand behind their warranty. Oh, I see. Lodge is good because it's an inexpensive way to get into cast iron cooking, and they work good enough to see how one likes cast iron, definitely. And Lodge has a great warranty. Oh, yeah. And I will gladly go out of my way to say that Lodge Cast Iron has world-class customer service. Anybody who deals with Lodge will certainly say the same thing. And no, they're not even paying me for that. Lodge really stands behind their product. Besides the fact that they are determined to stay here in the USA and also apparently determined not to be bought out by some big mega corporation, which is great because they are doing these last few years have been the best business years in Lodge's entire history. Yeah, they've got a lifetime guarantee on their pans, and you better believe they mean it. There are many stories on the Cast Iron Cooking Group of people who have bought, say, slightly flawed enameled Dutch ovens from Lodge, or slightly flawed cast iron pans even. And Lodge has just simply replaced those pans for free. Didn't even ask them to send back the originals. And so they got a free cast iron pan for that. All they really need to do is to show their receipt to show that they purchased it and they didn't just like find it at a yard sale. So that is really standing behind their product. So Lodge is not perfect. There are things about their product that people do gripe about, like their factory seasoning. I have to admit is mediocre. It's good enough to cook on, but it really needs to be improved, which is where we come in. We improve it by cooking in it. On the other hand, you can find a lot of times Lodge sells their seconds, their slightly flawed cast iron at enormous discounts, especially at the Lodge factory stores. And oftentimes that just means there's a little flaw in the seasoning or something. So, and there's really nothing wrong with getting a cast iron pan from Lodge at a bargain like that. Okay, peg tooth. My Copco lidded enamel cast iron pot is the last enamel piece that I will buy. It is good, but I'm afraid of chipping it because I'm a klutz sometimes. Oh, you and me both, believe me. Yeah, that is the thing about enamel cast iron, of course. Yes, it can chip. And that's why as well I never use metal utensils in my enameled cast iron. I do not mind at all using metal utensils in my bare cast iron because all it does at most is maybe it can scratch the seasoning, which is really not a big deal. Okay. Uh, oh boy, my wonderful cat just got out of his bedroom, so I wouldn't be surprised if he lives up to his name in a few minutes. That's all right. Um, but yeah, as far as enamel cast iron is concerned, yes, I do make sure to use only wooden utensils or silicone utensils on enamel cast iron. So what else do we have here? Their pre-seasoning came off. Yeah, their pre-seasoning came, Papa Dan. Their pre-seasoning came off my 7-quart Dutch oven after a few cooks, all over my smooth electric stovetop. Ouch! Sorry to hear that. Contacted them, and it was replaced on the spot. Oh well, there you go. That's what I mean. It's as I said, Lodge has world-class customer service as far as that is concerned. Bookworm 73, my vintage pans are much smoother than Lodge, but it all works well. Oh, definitely. Only a couple of weeks ago, I did a bit on smooth versus rough cast iron. So, Henry W., can you grind off the pre-seasoning? Yes, you can, but there's no need to. It's much easier to just use a lye tank, quite frankly, or even the oven cleaner in a trash bag method. Because the Lodge pre-seasoning is so thin, it's very easy to strip using a method that will not scratch your pan the way grinding it will. So, like for instance, I've got to rebuild my lye tank after I move this spring. But after that, I mean, once you've got a good lye tank, if you buy a brand new Lodge cast iron pan, you can just drop it in the lye tank, and 24 hours later, you can take it out, scrub it with your regular dish soap and the like, and it is completely bare, and then you can season it from scratch. No problem at all, and that doesn't even take very long. So, we've got try not to use any grit. If cast iron is pitted, can it be ground down? Well, again, yes, technically it can. I would still use it even if it's pitted. Like for instance, my big 15-gallon cast iron cauldron that actually has some big pits on the bottom. I'm thinking it was probably pretty rusted and pretty abused in the decades before I ended up buying it, which must be why I could actually get it as a price that I can afford. But it works fine. I mean, you've seen I have used that big cauldron, and I've made jambalaya in it, and I've had no problem at all using it. Besides, especially with, like, say, a 19th century cast iron pan, the iron itself may be brittle enough that if you were to do something like grind it, you could run a risk of cracking it. So that's another reason why I would not want to grind down a thin, smooth cast iron pan. If you want to grind down a modern day brand new cast iron pan that you bought yourself, you can do that. Even a Lodge if you want, or an Asian made cast iron pan if you want. I mean, it's your cast iron. You can do whatever you want with it. I personally am against grinding because I see no need for it. I can cook just fine without grinding it. And peg tooth electrolysis is planned for me once the weather improves, and then I can do it outside. Yes, yeah, the e-tank is a great way to clean dirty cast iron, new and old. Fine. Tired of the COVID mess. You don't have it? Well, that's good. Let's keep it that way. Papa Dan, I've been on the lookout for a hoghead cast iron pan ever since that hoghead cheese, but people are proud of them. Yeah, it does seem like it, doesn't it? I can only say that I was lucky. Well, sort of lucky in that I scored that hoghead cheese pan from eBay for about $30, and had been completely painted over. So I actually had to soak that in the lye tank for something like a month or so before I could take it out and actually season it. I did do a lead test on it, yes, a lead paint test, and it did turn out negative. So that's why I knew it was safe. After that, I mean, after really doing my best to scrub it all off as best as I could, and then seasoning it several times, then indeed I've had a lot of fun using that that hoghead pan. I'm told that those were actually made by Lodge. And let's see. Uh, Linguophile 88. My Lodge pens that I've owned for 1 to 2 years feel pretty smooth just from use. Well, yes, exactly. That's really the point, is that if you build up the seasoning, even a so-called rough cast iron pan will feel nice and smooth. My Lodge redneck pan, which I know I've told you about, that's okay, here we go. Excuse me, please. I've got to rescue this from the cat. Ugh. If you see the camera moving, that's because he's decided to play with the cable. Oh, who knows?
How did he get up?
Who knows?
Come on. Trouble.
Hey, trouble. I think mommy's calling you. Hey, it works. He's coming in there.
Come on. Come on.
Okay. What was I just saying? I've actually forgotten. It says season. Oh yes, that's right. Smooth. Yes, when you season it well, then it does become nice and smooth and slick, exactly like they say. My Lodge redneck pan, which is a modern Lodge cast iron skillet, I've got several layers of good seasoning on it, and it is nice and smooth. Also, I can say the same thing about my South African poiki pan pot. You know, that round pot that looks like a cauldron. Looks like a witch's cauldron. That is Asian made, yes. And when I first got it, it did indeed have a really rough surface. But no, the seasoning on the inside now is really nice, and it is nice and smooth, and it is wonderful to cook in. In fact, yeah, we are getting into just about a month to one of my favorite cooking holidays, St. Patrick's Day. And that means it's time for the corned beef and cabbage, which I intend to make in my big poiki pot. So I'm looking forward to that. Really not Bob. I had to get one of my own, but I have several family members that have Lodge pans and have never had one break or have defects. Yes, that's what I mean. Lodge is really quality stuff. JD, how did you season your cauldron? Very carefully. Actually, I did do a short video last October, as I was getting ready for that big Halloween cookout, in which I did actually season it just over the propane burner, and really just heated it up to the point where I was able to melt and season and burn some beeswax and Crisby cast iron seasoning, at least on the insides of that. The outsides, when I first seasoned that, well, I did it the hard way. I can't do that right now, but I actually took my that huge 75-pound cauldron, turned it upside down, and rested it on the 4 burners of my stovetop. Yes, I did. I've got a photo that I should probably repost because it's several years old, showing that thing resting on my stovetop as I was seasoning it. So how do you season one of those? Very carefully. There is actually a good video that's several years old that I do use as a reference when people ask about seasoning those really big cast iron pots. Go onto YouTube and look for how to season a large cast iron stew pot, and you will find it. It's by a guy who calls himself Cohort 223 or something like that. Sounds like Trouble is living up to his name. At this point, if you want to let him out, go ahead. You know, we are getting on in time, so I'd say we are getting close. So yeah, I mean, wow. In fact, as crazy as it seems, it's been about 45 minutes since that cake went into the oven. well, 40 minutes, and in about 10 minutes or so, it'll be coming out. I didn't expect to be going on that long. Okay. I don't know why people are so worried about Lodge's pre-seasoning. I think of like the first tank of gas in your car. It's not going to last forever. Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. I think I could definitely agree with that. I mean, the short answer is, well, keep on cooking, and that should take care of it. So, oh yeah, he is definitely getting playful, all right. Well, we've already had one mishap tonight. That one was not his fault, I promise. Hopefully we will not have any more. I'll just keep an eye on him. That's all I can do. James Ramsdell. Been using a new large Buffalo Nickel number 8 for about a month. Seasoned it like I would have vintage. I used CIC beeswax and just giving it a glass surface. Great. Oh yeah, no, yeah. That Buffalo Nickel skillet in itself has an interesting little history, even though it's only a few years old. 2014, I think that's right. It was initially made for Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel, as you know, has its yearly American Heritage, or whatever they call it, series of cast iron skillets where every year they do one. Oh, great. He jumped up on the counter. How nice. He's probably going to come walking over this way. Anyway, they produce a series of they produce an American-themed cast iron skillet each year, and the first one they did was, in fact, the Buffalo Nickel skillet, and they discontinued it like they do every year. However, Lodge took up the design of the Buffalo Nickel skillet because it's actually simply the Buffalo Nickel, and that is not copyrighted. You figure, the coin designs are by the U.S. government, so it is not copyrighted. And so Lodge has just still been producing that Buffalo Nickel skillet, and you can order it from Walmart's website, and it's really not even expensive either. It might be maybe $20, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I'm not even sure entirely. But yeah, the Buffalo Nickel skillet is actually one of those really great deals you can get if you want to get a special nice cast iron pan that you could give as a present or just keep for yourself, whichever you prefer. And oh, good, he jumped down. And oh my God. Yeah, I think you can see that. Yeah, now as you can see, this guy here, that's why we called him Trouble the first day he arrived here. Anyway, yes, no, the Buffalo Nickel skillet, yes, I'm glad to own the Buffalo Nickel skillet for that reason. And I actually hope that Lodge does some more American coin skillets for that reason. It's very attractive and it's really nice to own and use. Joshua Vives, what happened to your arm? Well, scroll back to about the beginning of this video and you will find out. You'll see. I told that story. And okay, what size is the Buffalo Nickel skillet? The Buffalo Nickel skillet is a standard Lodge 10-inch skillet, or a number 8. I gotta watch him. No, you're not going to climb up there, although he's certainly trying, isn't he? I wonder if you can see what he's doing. No, I don't think you can from this angle. Anyway, yeah, it's a number 8 10-inch cast iron skillet. The same size that Lodge uses on a lot of their other commemorative skillets, like the ones they produce for Cracker Barrel every year. And again, it would be a really great skillet to use as a person's very first cast iron pan. I looked on Wally World's website the last time you mentioned the Buffalo Nickel, but it isn't listed anymore. It's not? Oh dear, I hope they haven't discontinued it. Henry W. started out using coconut oil, but I really think it's cooking with a variety of fats and oils that have given mine a good seasoning. Lately, I've been using Easy Beasy. No, he's settled down again. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. All right. Okay, I think we better check that cake. I was gonna do so in about 5 minutes, but okay. Yeah, I know. Jamie's rule is if it smells done, it's done. So I guess we might very well see this. Let's move this over a little bit. We might actually, now that you say that. 'Cause, yeah, you're right. I don't think I should trust myself. That's okay. That's okay. There's a pot holder right there.
Do you want to take it out already? Or you want
Yes.
to
Yeah.
check it? That's done.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's done.
Just put it on top, and then you can close the door.
No, that's not done.
It's not done.
That's not even close to done. Look at it.
Oh dear, you're right. Okay. Well, I hope it doesn't fall. But okay.
Yeah, that's liquid still.
All right. So we're talking like maybe another 10, 15 minutes.
I don't know, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, so much for that. Okay. That's all right. That's okay. Not to worry. I think we'll be wrapping it up soon now anyway. Let me get up here because I think you would prefer not seeing my gut. However, as she said, okay, that's all right. I will provide a photo of the cake after it comes out of the oven then in that case. And so we are getting along here. Anything else you're still hunting for your collection? Well, the ones that I am hunting are admittedly very rare, and I don't know if I will ever find them for the rest of my life, but you never know. That's the thrill of the hunt. Okay, well, as I said, we are getting along here, and I guess I'll just say one last time, as I mentioned, I unfortunately, no, not a long story. I slipped on the ice during a snowstorm on Sunday. Landed on my wrist. I went to the ER, and it ended up that I do have a fracture in my wrist, a distal fracture, which is a very common fracture. Apparently, it's so I'd say that the odds are good that I will be completely healed and out of this thing in about 3 to 4 weeks. During that time, well, I'm going to be doing more cast iron chats like I'm doing right now. I started out tonight by actually cooking, by making a cake. And that is, the last cast iron cooking I'm afraid I'm going to be doing for a little while. But it's only temporary, and it could have been a lot worse. Again, I may have a wrist fracture, but, well, at least I didn't get a hip fracture. So, I really have not much to complain about. I do have some to complain about, but not much. Could be a lot worse. And besides, hey, I'm hardly the only one. So best I could say is I will just relax and do my best. And again, keep on chatting with all you folks, because really this is a lot of fun here. I mean, it's really these live chats that make this worth it. I mean, doing it live on camera. Let me rephrase that. Cooking live on camera is a lot of fun, and you can see why a lot of people like doing that. But it's really the interaction with all of you folks that really makes this even more fun, and definitely makes it all worthwhile. And as I always say, I can only hope that you folks are entertained enough that you keep coming back and press the like button and do all of those things that they do with YouTube. So I really very much enjoy this, and despite this little mishap, I am not stopping. I can only thank everybody as always for stopping by tonight. So take care. Don't slip again. No. As far as I'm concerned, the only slipping I'm doing is if I make more mistakes as I'm cooking, which I probably will be. I'll just try to make sure they're not fatal ones. All right, and on that, I think we are all set tonight. So I can only once again thank everybody for showing up. I apologize again for the mishap that occurred tonight. This is becoming a weekly occurrence, and as soon as I'm able, I am going to go and take my laptop here that I use for my server and upgrade the RAM, and we'll see if that takes care of these stupid lockups that are causing so much annoyance. But nonetheless, though, thank you everybody for your patience for putting up with it. So once again, I can only thank everybody really for all your time, and above all else, folks, have fun cooking. So thank you once again. Have a good evening.